I'm just adjusting the music, everyone. See if I can't learn from the last time I did this here. I want the music to be kind of be playing in the background there, so I'm just adjusting everything here. What's going on here? See if I can't learn from the last time I did this here. I want the music to be kind of be playing in the background there, so just adjusting everything here. Okay. Okay. Let me go ahead and publish the link out there on Slack real quick, and then we'll get started here. Let me go ahead and share my desktop here real quick with you all. There we go. And I'm going to grab the link here real quick and share it with everyone. All right, I already have. Okay, wonderful. Okay. Hello, everyone. It is Alex once again with this week's IT stuff that we're going to cover today. We're going to continue some development on the checking account register program that we decided that we were going to try to develop. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe with the folks at Code Black on the Facebook page, on the Slack community. You can see we've got a couple of different Slack communities here, Code Black. And then also, like, comment, share, subscribe on my channel. As always, we're here to learn from each other. Only constructive criticism, please. You see, I've got the mood lighting going on right now. I've got my tasty beverage. It's just water, y'all. There we go. So I took a swig, and we're going to go ahead and get started here. Okay. Excuse me. So, what did we cover last week? We did a lot of code that you all couldn't hear me with. And what we did was we created our check register. Now, I've made a few changes since the last time you saw me here because I changed some things in order to get the class going last week, last Saturday. And so what I've done, let me go from the first here. First thing that I did, is I opened up an SQL Management Studio session. And that SQL Management Studio session is where I'm doing all of my SQL database work. Next, what I did was I created a series of database tables. Now, I didn't put any foreign keys on there because I'm just being lazy, and this is just for expedience sake. It's not going to be an app that I'm going to, just push out to the masses. It's just going to be something that we're going to just learn how to do some coding and stuff on. So what I've done here is I've created a series of tables here, and that series of tables are in the check register database, and those are a series of tables for credits, debits, a list of vendors, and then a general ledger database. I just call it general ledger. I should have called it check register or something like that, but I'm just. The next thing that I did was I created a couple of files that are called Schema Scripts. And so what these Schema Scripts have in them, let me open this up just a little bit more so you can see. So what these Schema Scripts have in here is they have all of the versioning of my creation of my database. Let me open up the other Schema Script because there's two scripts, there's two files or two scripts that you would need to run. The first script that you're going to run is a SQL Server database creation script, basically. So it's going to create the check register database. You have to run this particular script first if you're going to create this database properly. So all I've done is I've gone ahead and created the database. It sets all the settings in there for you automatically. And then the second one that I created, the second schema that I created was this check register table schema. And so what it does is it automatically will go through and pick out the database that you're going to be using, and then it's going to create all of your table structure in there. So you see I have my general ledger account here, my general ledger table here. I've got a condition in here that if the table is already existing, it doesn't try to recreate the table, because if you do, you'll get an error. The next one, and I've got a little message down here. The next one is their vendor table. It's got all of our vendors in there. I'm live streaming. It's got all of our vendors in there. And then in the previous video, if you remember right, I had a database of mocked up data that I was using. The next one that I have in here is our credits, and it mirrors what our debits do, except, obviously debits are subtracting from your account, credits are adding to your account. And then finally, I've got our general ledger in here as well. Where'd it go? There's a general ledger. And then I actually added a column, or I changed the column in our general ledger to be balance instead of amount, I think it was. And so I probably need to change that up there. It's a column that I added. Maybe I am live streaming. It's a column that I added, so that way our balance can be seen as live streams, I tell you. So our balance can be seen. So when we query our table, and so if we look here, let me do this here. It's probably easier. If I go through and I query this table, and you can see it kind of here. Let's see here. Right here. You can see how our table has all of our credits and some debits in here. And then here's our general ledger right here, where it's got, credits and debits and stuff like that. And as we subtract and add to our account, it does the math for us. So the way that works is it will go ahead and use the database trigger. So what's a database trigger? Well, if we go back to this table here, let's see, right here, we have our database triggers in here. Right here, there's a table alter, here's the database trigger. And what our database trigger does is whenever we fire off, whenever we insert a row into our debits or our credit table, the database trigger will automatically go to our general ledger and add the required information to our ledger table. It'll transform the vendor ID from a number into a name, basically. Then it will do the math for us if it's a debit or credit, and then it will go ahead and subtract the amount if it's a debit from our balance, and it will add an amount to our account if it's a credit. The last line in here that I do, so I've got two triggers on two separate tables, and then the last line I do is I have an initial deposit line in there that just inserts one row into our general ledger to get us kind of started, because your credit and your debit triggers won't work if there's no beginning balance in your ledger. Okay, so you can start it at 0. I marked the vendor as an adjustment, basically. And that's just you starting your balance out there. So we've got all of that information there, um, and it's ready to go for our next phase. And our next phase is altering our C sharp classes to use this. So, excuse me, one of the things that I did, excuse me, in our previous video was I had some extra SQL over here that I probably didn't need. And I've got a few different, in our DAO, I've got a few different methods that we probably don't need. So I did a little bit of cleanup here. One thing that I did do, and I probably don't need this either. What do I have that in there for? I have no idea why I have that in there. So we're going to do a little cleanup in here. So, and the reason why is because we're going to make this class, we're going to make it as clean as possible, not code-wise, but efficiency-wise, right? So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and get rid of, I don't think we're even using those. Let's see, are we using those? No, we're not even using those. So we don't need these 4 references in here. So we're going to get rid of those. We're going to get rid of these. That means we're going to get rid of these as well, because we don't need these anymore in our interface. And all the interfaces is just a contract between a derived class and a class. It means that you are agreeing to use the logic that is included in the interface and only the logic that's included in the interface. I don't know if I explained that the right way. So what we're going to do is come down here and do a little bit of cleaning up here. All right, so we don't need this insert credit method anymore. We don't need this insert debit method anymore. We definitely don't need the insert GL record anymore because our database trigger is handling that information. So we've got 2 classes here, right? And actually we can get rid of this connect to DB because I think that was our first attempt at trying to make a database interface basically. Okay, so now we have one method here. And I'm just going to clean up just a little bit more. Okay. Minimize that. Okay, so what we have is we have one specific class that handles our interaction with our database, and that's our DAO class. The connection string is contained on my computer in my environment variables, because you can't get to that. And then I also have a partial class here. What do I have a partial class here? Let's see. Do I need a partial class? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so what I have here is I have a class, my DL class, and what it does is it's handling my database interaction. Let me go here and kind of show you what I'm doing here. So the first thing that I do when I create a new when I instantiate a new instance of this particular class, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my connection string and store it right away. So let's go back to our unit test here. Let's go right here. And so what we're doing right here is, no, not right there, right here, in this line right here, let me zoom that in just a little bit here. We are creating a new object of our check register class. We're instantiating a new object of our check register class and our check register DAO class. So that's going to hit this part of our partial class right here. And as I go through, what it does is it creates a new connection string, and then it's going to populate that connection string as soon as I say new check register base class. This base class is a partial class that's derived from um, um, it's just a piece of a class, right? And so what I can do is I can create this class, and I actually let me do this here. Check register DAO, and that should be I check register. I don't think I need to do that there. And this should be check register DAO. And check register DAO, constring, partial class, da 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 da. I probably should just move this logic up there. And then move this up there. Get rid of that. Uh-oh. Like so. And I don't need this one here. There we go. That's better. And then when I come over here, let me rebuild this. Let me just retest it real quick because I made a change to it. My unit test, okay, everything works fine. Come over here, go to my query that I had here, close that one. And I should have another entry after this one. So I have 9 rows in this table now, at least 9. Go up. Yep, there we go. Okay. So, let me go back and explain what I did here, this cleanup here. So what I did was I just did a little cleanup here, and I made sure that I was, only creating this piece of a class here. This is the same class. I've just kind of split it into 2 different declarations here. Probably not even necessary, but I just wanted to kind of show you what this partial keyword can do here. And so what I've done is I've created a class called check register DAO, which is my main class in this particular library. When I create a new class, a new instance of that class, I'm automatically setting my connection string like I said before. And then the next thing I do is I am going to inherit from this I check register main interface, which is this up here. I expose this insert data generic method to the outside world. And because I'm using SQL, I'm going to use iDisposable, which will dispose of any unused objects that I have there, like old database connections and transactions and stuff like that. Okay, so in doing it this way, instead of making individual methods for each of those different functions, what I'm doing is I'm giving myself the ability to make one method to handle all 3 types of inserts. So this is an insert, this is an insert, and this is an insert. And it's based on the model that I'm sending to the method. So if I come over here, and let's say like on this unit test here, oh, that's not the right unit test there. Let me come down to this one here. This is our DAO test. On this one right here, this test tests the insert credit model. So I'm going to insert a credit into my database with this particular method. If you notice here, I'm using insert data, and I'm inserting a credit. Down here, I'm using insert data, I'm inserting a debit, and then down here I'm doing the vendor, and I'm inserting a vendor. I'm still calling the exact same method each time, but I'm giving it different data. And what I do is, based on what I give it, it says, okay, there's specific SQL that I need to do based on what you gave me. And based on what you get, so this is just a switch statement that is like a conditional statement that says if I have a vendor model, then I'm going to use the vendor model SQL, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to use that to insert a row into my vendor, or I'm going to insert a row into my credit. Okay. Now what I've also done here is I have my connection string that I used. I should probably say this dot. Let's say that. It doesn't like that. Oop. Okay, so it's because it's property. So what I've done here is I open up my connection, establish my connection. I open my connection. I begin a transaction. This is like saying I want to save my work, or I want to give myself a mulligan, an ability to give myself a mulligan. The next thing I do is I say send the SQL, send the model that I'm using, and send my transaction to the SQL so that it can continue the transaction that I need to. If I get rows back, then I commit my transaction, I save my record to the table, and I'm done. And I just return. If I don't get any rows back, then I roll back my transaction right away. And then if I have an exception, I roll back my transaction so I unlock the table for everybody else. And then of course, if I have any exceptions here, then I've not even started a connection by then. So the next thing we need to do is we need to have a lookup on our vendor table, because we're going to have to store all of the vendors in some kind of a drop down list or a typable, you start typing and it automatically will, show you the information, kind of a list there. So we need to grab our vendor information back. We have a vendor model over here in the right hand side, which is just a name. And so what we can do, and actually we need the vendor ID as well, because we're going to have to insert that information into our credit. So we need to add something to this. So we're going to put in our IDs, our GUIDs. Well, no, our vendor IDs over here are just numeric values right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say big int. No, oh my gosh, long. And it's going to be vendor ID. Is it capitalized there? Yep, capitalized there. And we're going to put a get there. And then down here, we're going to put public string long vendor ID, because it's a property. We do that. And then this vendor ID equals 0. It's going to be overwritten anyway by what we get back from the table. So then what we need to do is down here, we're going to do our lookup. And actually, let's do this. It's rows based on type into the database. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the vendors here, okay? Excuse me. And we can do retrieve all vendors, like that. Excuse me. And what we need to do is we're going to mimic our SQL that we did here. But what we need to do first is develop our SQL to do our query. So let's come over here. We're going to create a new query. Now, the easiest way to do this, just like from scratch, if you want to do this kind of fast, is you can come over to the table that you need in SSMS, right click the table, say script table as select to, and it gives you your select statement that you're going to need here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this go out of here because we don't need that. Copy this, come over here, and actually, let's just do it this way. And what we need to do is we need to either parameterize our query. Well, that's if we're doing a regular select. We want to prevent SQL injection on this. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to parameterize a query. We're using, what we're doing is we're using Dapper. So what is Dapper? Dapper is a library that allows you to use query language to create a SQL query. And I've got an example here of what we're going to do. And this is using, he's using, I think, WPF for this. We don't care about that. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all the records from our table. So we're going to do something similar to what he's doing here. So what we need to do is we need to create our model, which we already have. And we're going to come down here. We're just going to copy all of this information here. Come down here and paste this in here. So now there's some stuff we can get rid of out of here. Since we're doing a SQL query, a select statement, and we're getting everything back, we won't need a transaction for that, I don't think, because we're not committing anything to the database. So we won't need this right here. We won't need this or this. We won't need this one here. Okay. Now, what we need to do, instead of doing just an execute to just get a number of rows back, is we need to actually get our data back. So we're going to do var data equals con dot query. Come down here, and this is an extension method that allows us to get a collection of data back in what's called an IEnumerable. An IEnumerable, which is a collection of a generic type, basically. And we can cast that to a list or whatever. So we're going to do vendor model here. We're going to say SQL, like that. And instead of even doing that, and see, we don't need all of this here. Delete that. What we can do is we've got our SQL query here that we created. Let's copy that. Come over to our logic here. Let's just right click and copy and paste that there. And just click this one time, change the name, retrieve vendors, like that. Double click that. I don't know why my SQL's not showing up here. It's weird. Come back over here and copy our SQL and paste it over here, like so. Save that. We can close that. Now what we need to do is come over to our project, click properties. Why is this acting up on me here? We're going to drag our retrieve vendors over here. So now it's a resource that we can call upon. in our project. And then on our DAO, we don't have to pass SQL here. We can just pass our properties, resources, or just resources actually. Retrieve vendors, like that. So our SQL's in that file there. I'll get rid of this one here. And come down here and get rid of that. And say if data dot count is greater than 0, then ret task equals true. And if I hover over count, hit that, it's asking me for the link, namespace reference, which I've done that. And now I should be good to go. Oh, actually, what I need to do is I need to change this retrieve all vendors from a Boolean value to an IEnumerable of vendor model. Okay. So now, instead of this ret task being a Boolean, I'm going to call it an IEnumerable of vendor model, and we're going to call this ret models, and that's going to be equal to a new list, which is a generic type, generic list of vendor model, like so. All right. And then down here, we're going to say return ret models. And then down here, we don't need to do that. ex.message. We're going to call this, get rid of this right here. And I don't need this other trans rollback here. Ret models equals data, like so. Paste that there. Okay. So if I get rows back in our query, then I just return those rows. Okay, next, what I need to do is I need to make a reference to this in my interface up here. Just paste that in there. Okay. Then I'll come over here and create a brand new test method. We'll just co-opt this one, test lookup. Something like that. And then I can say range ANGE at and assert. All right. So we're going to arrange this. We're going to say var how do I want to do this? Var list of actually model expected new vendor model. I'm going to give the vendor ID of 101. And vendor name is going to be, of course, Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. Roscoe getting all kind of work. So there's Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles there, right? Oh, there we go. So that's an arrange. This is an act. Var actual new equals instance test test live. Retrieve all vendors. All right. In assert, what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to change this to a list. To list. And we're going to use link for this as well. Then we're going to do a query on this. We're going to say var let's do some link here actually. To list there, and we're going to get changes from actual to returned, and we're going to do var actual equals returned dot select x dot no where x dot vendor ID equals 1001 select okay, and that should just give us one model back right there. Then what we do down here is we say assert r equal actual dot vendor ID and return expected vendor ID, and let's do that same thing with the name. Actual vendor name expected vendor name, like so. Oop. All right. Okay, so we've got our next test scenario here. Let's open up our test explorer. We've got a test to do here. I might have put that in the wrong spot here. No, I didn't. Okay, so let's debug this. Test here, debug. It'll stop here. 10. And we'll hit F11 to go in there. F10, F10. Get our connection string. Open our database connection. We do a query. We've got data back. We have 1,000 rows back. Okay, so let's see what we got back here on our return here. So here's our return down here. And we can see we've got our 1 is flash set, 2 is twim, and if we scroll all the way to the bottom for 1016, here's Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles here. He's actually in there more than once, and he shouldn't be, and I know why he's in there more than once. So let's go to 1002. It should be this one. This one. Yeah. And so the reason why he's in there more than once is because our key is the ID that we're uh, serving on here. We probably should add another piece of that key there. And then that way we have a unique identifier there. Probably add the name to the key. That'll work too. So this test is going to fail because we're not using the correct vendor ID. And there's our exception right there. Oh, actually, that didn't work. So what's our actual here? I think I know what's up. Let me close this. And we have to select it. Select. Vendor model. No, that's not gonna work. Vendor model. No, Alex, come on, Alex, just do what you know. Select Y, new vendor model. And let me do this here. And so this will be vendor ID equals Y vendor ID, and vendor name equals Y that vendor name. And we can take that first or default off of there because it's going to be the only one there. And we need to change this to 1002. Okay, what'd you do, Alex? I guess I do have to keep that in there. Okay, so now, if I come back in here and I debug this, let's see what we get this time, shall we? So we come through, do our logic, and if I look, I should have a vendor model here. And it's got my 102 and Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. So now these should be true. Nope. What did it say there? It expected a 1002. I got 10. Oh, yeah, duh. Because I skipped one. There we go. And debug this again one last time. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. There we go. So now our test passed right there. So now that tests us being able to grab all of the vendors as well. But it also exposed a bit of logic gap in our code here in our SQL. So let's take a look at our vendor. It's just an ID and a name in there. So what we probably should do, let's think this through here for a second here. We want our vendor ID to be unique to the name of the person or the name of the business. So instead of having, and if we look here, we have it as an identity field. So maybe that's not the best thing to do. So let's do this. We're going to change our schema here. execute that. It's going to ask me to reconnect. Yep, that's fine. And so in our vendor table up here, instead of this being an identity field, what we can do, I mean, we can use this, we can make this a GUID as well, which might actually be a better way to do this. So we can make this a unique identifier as well, like so. Let's get rid of this. Paste that in there. Now what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to go back and change our models though, obviously. So let's drop our table. Let's come back over here and rerun our schema real quick. Don't need that. We'll close that one there. Close this one here. And rerun our schema. And it says our unique identifier is incompatible in our insert debits in our triggers. So our triggers are now messed up. So we have to go fix our trigger real quick. So what we need to do is we need to now change our debit and our credit vendor IDs, because now these need to be unique identifiers as well. Like so. Actually, let's just make them a string. Oh, what is it? Let's do a bit of Google in here. Length. GUID SQL table. SQL server. It's a 16-byte binary. It's longer than 16 bytes. We can probably make it there's 36 to 38 characters in the GUID, but 38 characters. Okay, so let's make this 38 here. Make this one 38. Oop. Like so. And on this one, so we want to be able to cast this the right way in SQL Server to C#. So let's look at SQL Server types, C#. There's a list, a table that will help you with this. So let's see if unique identifier is actually in there somewhere. This is a unique identifier, GUID. Okay. Oh. So unique identifier is a GUID basically. But how does that pull back? I mean, it's a GUID. I don't think that was working for me the last time I tried it though. Let's try it real quick and see what happens. Yeah, let's just try it and see what happens. We'll change it in our vendor table here. I didn't create, did it? And we need to drop our, I got so many sequels. Drop table vendor. Okay. Let's just run. Well, we've got to fix these real quick. Okay, so vendor ID. We'll just make a unique identifying because it's a unique identifier there. There. Insert debits. Were you whining about? Oh, it's in our general ledger. It's right. I think it's in our general ledger here. Doesn't like something here. Select that from that where V vendor ID equals D vendor ID. If we go to our debits, oh, we have to drop our debit and credit tables. We have to do that too. I guess we can let's just drop all three of these tables here. And let's try to rerun our stuff there. There we go. Refresh this. Okay. And we should have unique identifier there now. Vendor name. Okay, there we go. So now we do have a insert vendor method that we can use. We have to change it now again. So if it's vendor model, we need to change our vendor model. Insert vendor. Goodness. I don't know why that's not displaying right. Okay, so we need to do that. Insert into that. Vendor name. Use that vendor name. We need to come over to our vendor model. And instead of this being new numeric value, this is now going to be a GUID. Like so. Like so. And this has to be a GUID. Like that. Save you. Let's do our unit test here. Okay, so we come down to our insert vendor. And I'm not sure what that's going to be. Oh. That. And vendor ID. Actually, let's do this up here. GUID. And then just pass new GUID here. And this is going to be excuse me, like that. All right, let's actually test out this insert vendor now. I'm gonna have to change that to a string. And this is new vendor model. This needs to be vendor ID equals new GUID. Oh, comma. Okay. So let's come over here and say insert vendor. Debug this. Let's see if this actually inserts. 10, 11. It's a vendor model. Execute. Uh-oh. See, that's what I was afraid of. So the exception I got back was view details. Close that. Exception settings. Let's see what happened here. Close that. And say just continue. Let's retest it again. Yeah, it doesn't like when you try to pass a GUID to it. So if we come down here, we see that our model. Oh, you know what? That's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. So if you're going to use a GUID, you have to say new GUID. Not this new GUID. It's GUID. New. New GUID. That's it right there. Duh, Alex. Come on. So go back over to our unit tests. That's so stupid. Alex, come on, man. Like that. And same thing down here. Save that. Let's try to debug this again. I'll take a sip. All right. F10, F11, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. It still doesn't like it. Cannot enter the value null. So why is that null? Let's do it one more time. Run. Uh-oh, that's not gonna work. Debug. 10. What is our vendor here? So we have a GUID here. 11, 10, 10, 10, 10. Let's see what our model is here. Our model has data. Wonder if it has to do with our. Oh, I know what's up. It's our sequel. We need to pass the vendor name, vendor ID. Like that. That might work. Okay, so let's come back here, debug. Let me check out the Slack to see if anybody's. Nope, didn't think so. Alright, so 10, 11, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, flash, still, what the heck? Why is that doing that, huh? It's got a GUID in there. Well, let's just do a little bit of research here, shall we? Let's see. C#, Dapper, insert GUID. What's going on there? Failing to read. GUID ID. Oh, it says you have to select it as a string. So let's try that and see what happens here. Roll back. Continue that. So now, yep, it's gonna fail. And stop you. Go over here. See, that's not gonna work though, because we're using a generic type here of method. So shoot. Let's just do this real quick. Since we're calling the one, let's just test our logic here. That's the point of us doing this. Okay, so SQL this way. New. Model, vendor ID equals model. Oh, I gotta cast it the right way. So it's gonna be vendor model. Model dot shoot. I gotta cast it the right way. Drawing a blank here. Vendor model. Do it this way here. Model. Oh, I'm drawing a blank here. Vendor ID and vendor name equals. Let's see if this works. I don't think this is gonna work, but it's worth a shot. Debug that. Hey, that's why we have these test things here, right? 10 F11. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep this thing from blowing up here. And it's doing it because it's not casting it the right way. Yep, still is not casting it the right way. Okay, insert the null value. Let me stop this. I'm going to restart my Visual Studio because something's going on with my Visual Studio here. I don't know if it's because I'm... Uh-oh. Nope, nope, nope. That didn't mean to do that. Cancel. Visual Studio here. So this is one of the things that you have to do when you're fighting through something. You know, you have to test it and try different things and try to see if you can solve the issue. I'm going to debug this. I'm going to see what my values are here when I get to that point. Okay, it's null. Okay. So on the SQL side, primary key and unique identifier not null. That's right. That's got data. Can I insert the null into column vendor ID? Not sure why that's null. Let's look at our SQL again here. Why is that doing that? That's driving me crazy. Insert into vendor, vendor ID, vendor name, and vendor ID, vendor name. I misspell it or something. ID, vendor name. Okay, well, let's try it this way then. There's always one way to skin a cat. Okay, so that should be working, man. Our model has data in it. I'm half tempted to just change it to a string, but let's try our table over here. Let's just do this. Let's go back over here. Let's go back over here and do an insert. Oh. Let's just do it this way. Yeah, it's there. I wonder if it's the squigglies that is doing it. I wonder if the squigglies are doing it. Let's see. Okay. India that vendor ID. String. Let's see what I'm getting back there when I get ready to do it here. Debug this. Okay. 10, 11, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Let's just try this GID here. Let's try that. Let me try that and see what I get. Still no. I wonder if let's go back. It's got to be in my SQL. There, it's not in my SQL. It's in my code over here. It's this here somewhere. Vendor ID, vendor name. what does my model call it? Vendor ID, vendor name. Okay. Vendor ID, vendor name. Well, this is not a mystery that I think I'm going to be able to solve tonight. I need to do a little research on this one and get this working here. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop tonight's session, and I'm going to work through this myself, and hopefully we can find out what's going on here and get past this challenge. So, until next time, like, comment, share, subscribe. Hopefully you found this found you well. We worked through quite a bit of stuff today. Obviously we had a challenge, but we can get through this. You can do this. We can do this together. So until next time, peace.